in everybody's hand. You zombie.
I've never been a sphere in cylinders before. It's very interesting.
Takes our individuality away. We're all part of the collective now.
I like it.
You'll probably see Wookiee making symbols, or it's fine. Just ignore him.
Nice. Trying to figure out how to best communicate with my body.
You have funny ears.
Until you guys have done a few of these, you've explored every possible angle here. Binoculars.
That's a good one. My favorite is the butt. Goes together like that. He's got a butt hanging out of the table.
See, you don't need
my
like
God.
Half-Life Alex. We got spheres. We're good.
Just need Tic Tacs and gumballs, baby.
Exactly.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to VR Verdict Podcast, episode 119. Our weekly podcast where we talk about everything VR. I am PJ,
Wookiee.
and joining us is the dev team behind the game. Jesus, I'm sorry.
Atlas Mystery of VR Puzzle Game.
Atlas Mystery of VR Puzzle Game.
Sorry,
We were talking to Nathan and Eric. How's it going, guys?
Great. No, yeah. Thanks
Yeah.
for having us on.
Going good.
Excited to talk. We'll get into the game, but damn, it's a good game.
We love
No,
hearing that.
thank
So-
you. Yeah.
Yeah. So first off, like, how did you arrive on a escape room type game, and how did you choose VR for it?
All right. Yeah, that is a story. So, funny enough, like my background isn't really even in game development. I know I'm a traitor. I'm sorry. I'll leave now. So I actually work mainly in film, and I've worked at a variety of film studios over the years. So I've worked at Orion Pictures with MGM. I worked at Blumhouse Productions, and funny enough, one of the films that we released at Blumhouse, and I worked on sort of the like marketing and distribution campaign for it. And one of the films that we released was called the Belko Experiment. And Dan Clifton, who heads up Top Right Corner, who is, it's an XR company, and they developed Atlas, but they also developed Belko VR, which was a collaboration between the studio that I was working for to promote the movie The Belko Experiment and his company. So really my first like foray into VR was working with Dan in order to create Belko VR, which, it was a promotional game, but it was an escape room. And we had a lot of fun like creating that game, and it was kind of in the infancy of VR. So it was back in like 2017. So like you didn't have the Quest headset, you didn't have kind of like the all-in-one setup yet. But we created this like 15-minute escape room to promote this movie that we were working on, and it kind of found a life of its own, which is kind of funny. It helped that it was a free experience, but yeah, it kind of took off on Steam, and I think it was in Viveport in kind of the early days too. So yeah, we started seeing like a lot of engagement, even to this day, like 5 years later, almost 6 years later, it still gets crazy amount of downloads. So we
Wow.
collaborated on that together, and many years later, Dan and I we're also working together on this, creating this film studio, and we kind of came together for a little bit, and I kind of approached him first, and I was like, hey, like working on Belko VR was fun, but it was, it was tied to this movie, it was tied to this IP. It'd be cool to do, like a brand new original escape room puzzle game and just like really grow it. and do something that's a lot bigger in scale. Like Belko was, like a 15-minute kind of promotional game. We wanted to do something that was like a few hours and this full kind of like narrative backstory to it and all that. So yeah, it actually came together really quickly, like within really like month and a half or so after talking about, the basic concept. We were able to get the financing. We were able to like, within about 4 weeks, I got through the game design document, kind of had the whole thing scripted out. So we were able to jump into development very quickly. Nathan, who works for Top Right Corner, jumped on and in the development cycle for like a year after that, and now here we are.
Oh, that's really quick.
Yeah.
Especially for how good the game is. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, well,
yeah, no.
Nathan put in a lot of work on that. So
yeah, when they first told me, they're like, okay, here's all the stuff we want. Originally, they're like, okay, we have about 6 months. I was like, okay, so that's impossible, but let's do it.
We're like, that's the attitude we need for this game.
Yeah, exactly. I gotta tell you, normally when we have a guest on, like I'll kind of look at the screen a lot, but I haven't finished the game, so I haven't looked at it once. I don't want to see anything, any spoilers or anything.
Yeah.
So.
Avoid those spoilers.
Mine freaked out, and mine's just black screen, so I'm lucky, no spoilers.
Oh, I just noticed that. What the heck, Wookie? Anyway, yeah, like the game itself, like the atmosphere, like holy crap, like you guys nailed it. And for listeners and watchers and Wookie who haven't played it yet, like it's a little creepy. You're in this old movie theater trying to make it through, and it's just like the sound, the music, like it's all tied together so well. Like you guys knocked it out of the park. It's pretty epic.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, I mean that was a big focus for us. Was we knew like we didn't have the same budgets that like a AAA VR game would have, so we kind of pulled on our film experience a lot too, and through making low budget films in particular, you learn a lot of tricks to kind of make things seem a lot bigger than they are. So yeah, that was a big focus for us, was like we knew we couldn't do crazy animations. We knew we couldn't do like full like mocap or really sophisticated character animations that would really hold up kind of in the current landscape of VR. So we kind of went to like the indie film toolkit, and it's like using a lot of like lighting tricks, putting a lot of focus on music and sound design. Even just like some narrative points to just like a lot of people who play through the game always tell us that they feel like they're being watched the whole time, which is interesting because there's like, it's all just kind of a subconscious feeling that you get just from kind of the lighting choices that we made, obscuring a lot of things in shadow.
I 100% agree with that. It does feel that way.
Yeah, and it's plus we threw a lot of narrative elements in there too, where like sometimes you'll read through papers or like script pages that you find, and it kind of like there's kind of like this crazy kind of meta feeling of like you're reading pages that are kind of spelling out what you're going through, and we're implying that you are being watched or that there is this kind of like presence that's observing you, and little things like that just kind of help sell the immersion when you don't have a ton of resources to work with.
I think you guys did some creative work in that aspect with like if I'm talking, I'm not going to go too far. I'm just going to talk about the first part of the game so I don't spoil anything, but like there's a popcorn machine. It's a movie theater. So just the way you handled like filling up the popcorn, like it worked really well. It's like don't take this wrong. It seems simple. I'm sure it's not, but just the way it works and the way you react with it, it's really interesting.
Yeah, that was a headache for you, right, Nathan?
Yeah, because I mean, there was a lot of things in the game where they're like, okay, we want to do it this way. Like originally, classic, they're like, okay, let's just fill the machine up with like individual popcorn pieces that all are physics based. I'm like, so that's just not going to work. So like,
you guys told me 6 months.
I had
the
to
popcorn
come
machine
up with
pushed it to 12.
Yeah, some system to make it work and feel like you're still dealing with a bunch of individual pieces without having to simulate thousands of physics objects in VR.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun challenge for sure.
Maybe you can, so like what you came up with versus like if you did take the time to individually do each kernel, which I think would be nuts.
Mhm.
Like to me, like I actually liked it more because I didn't know what to expect. So I didn't know if that was actually going to be like individual popcorn, but like just the creativity you had with it, like I actually liked that more than I think I would the actual individually crafted pieces, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I think it worked out. I think it's one of those things that it makes sense and it worked out pretty well, and it's super efficient. Like, I mean, it's, you know, we could have 100 people doing that on the screen at one time and probably be fine performance wise. So
Awesome.
Yeah, that was a big challenge, was just every, you know, it was a big kind of deal breaker for us where we didn't want this to feel like a kind of like level based or like more turn based escape room game. You know, there's a lot of experiences out there that are like, that's why we call it a puzzle game mainly, as opposed to like, you know, we labeled it a puzzle game as opposed to just like a pure escape room game. Because a lot of escape room games, you have this connotation of like, okay, there's like a handful of like rooms that you choose from. You know, each room is like, you know, 10 foot by 10 foot, kind of very small space. And you have a time limit to get out. Like, we really wanted to be like, you know, you start off in like a, you know, employee lounge, kind of this like back room of the theater. And we wanted this seamless experience of being able to like go through and kind of unlock different areas of the theater, and then be able to, you know, at any time kind of revert back and be able to, you know, go back to the sections that you've already visited.
Nice.
Which, given the kind of tight time frame, you know, massive undertaking as far as just figuring out seamless loading points, figuring out how to manage performance and make sure that in no single moment are you rendering too much. And I mean, this was all just kind of the balancing act that Nathan had to work. But, you know, ultimately it gives you this feeling that like you really are thrown into this very, you know, very real, very atmospheric environment. And another thing that we leaned heavily on too was that, you know, we had kind of like a limit of objects, limit of, you know, polygons that we could kind of push this all to. So, you know, we really focused in on like design work and creating, you know, textures that didn't feel stock or in any way, and making sure that like we had illustrated film posters that felt very detailed and very unique. And we hired this illustrator, Ronnie Centeno, to, you know, like we commissioned, you know, fake film posters, like product design that was reminiscent of that like 40s kind of 50s era, and just made sure that like every object was, you know, had some sort of like unique element to it, so it really felt like a polished experience, even though, you know, we kind of had to keep the number of things that we had in the game just like under control, you know.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned the starting area. I really liked how you guys handled that. And maybe I'm wrong, but I've done a lot of escape rooms in real life and they're cool for what they are, but like locks and keys, you know, enough is enough. But you
Right.
guys, in my opinion, like your starting area, you kind of, you know, showed off each mechanic and got the player familiar with it. And you kind of use like the old tropes of escape rooms to like teach. And then after that, it was like totally, you know, original, you know, for the most part, like original puzzles and things. So I thought that was really neat how you did that. And like you said, the seamless transition and the fact you can go back I thought that was really cool too.
Cool, thank you. Yeah.
No, definitely. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, yeah, there are moments where, you know, it was kind of easy to like default into kind of like standard escape room design, and like we'd have to like catch ourselves occasionally, be like, oh, we're like handling a lot of keys or a lot of locks at this moment. Let's get like more, like, we're in virtual reality. Let's get more crazy with it. Let's get more creative with like the different types of objects that you're handling. because like I just played an escape room a couple weeks ago where it was like, you know, I handled like 20 number combination locks like the whole
Yep.
time I was there, and like after a while you're like, another 4-number sequence, like, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, we, you know, at some point we're like, well, let's like make, you know, you have to discover a bunch of like buttons and symbols, and you know, those symbols could be hidden in some ways, and yeah, you can really like we wanted to make it feel like it was kind of rooted in reality, like you were transported to a different time, so you know, you're not like trying to escape from like an alien spaceship or something like that. But you know, still kind of pushing it to like, you wouldn't do these things in like a real life escape room, you know. And there are certain like kind of trippy things that we could play with in VR that just kind of push it past that like reality realm.
Yeah. If the atmosphere and the music and just the overall look, it wasn't enough when I got to the serving area, and the way, I'm not going to spoil it, but one of the puzzles involved like a combo, like a food combo, and I'm that hooked me. Like, that's it. That's so neat. I'm in. Like, I thought that was so creative. Like, you use the environment and all the different things that are actually at a movie theater, not like, you know, take this key over here and do it. Like, I mean, there was a key at one point, but like the combo, the food combo was just, I thought that was awesome.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And like, you know, early on, the whole concept was like, you know, let's set this thing in like an old. Well, originally I was thinking, what's a cool environment for an escape room that we just haven't really seen before, and that, you know, both has like kind of tied in narrative potential, but also, you know, a kind of baked in just interesting puzzle design elements to it. And you know, I'm a big movie fan, if I haven't made that obvious. So it's, you know, it very quickly kind of came together in my mind that I was like, oh, like I love those old movie theaters. Like it's like a lot of them have been torn down. They don't really exist anymore. And like the few that are around, you know, it's kind of like few and far in between. So, you know, let's recreate one from the ground up and like, you know, have total control over the design and everything of it. And then, yeah, set this kind of like, you know, cool escape room with a very kind of baked in story. And yeah, like I actually worked at a few kind of like independent movie theaters, because I was born in LA and been working here like pretty much my whole life. So you know, I would hear all these like crazy stories, and so many of these theaters would have like these insane histories of like, you know, people being like shot in the lobby and like the theaters being haunted, and like this was all real life stuff that I was kind of like steeped in for a long time. So, you know, a lot of the story elements that you pick up in Atlas is inspired by just kind of like all the crazy stories I've heard during the time working at these places, allegedly haunted places.
That's really cool. It's kind of like a history of that then for that area. It's really neat.
Yeah.
So I think it was before the game came out, you guys shared it, and I was streaming it, and I had to remind myself that I was streaming it, because like when you come out of that starter lounge or the coworker area for the tutorial, you open the doors and you come out there, and there's like a movie poster there, and there's just like the coolest. There's a couple of them, and they just look like, I spent 5 minutes just sitting there looking at them. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm streaming. That's probably not what people want to see, but I was just like in awe. Like it looks so good. Just captured me.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, again, a testament to the artist Ronnie, who like I knew I kind of wanted to work with pretty early going into this like the development cycle of this game. And yeah, he like, it's just so funny because he specifically focuses on like his interests, and kind of a lot of the work that he does is on like 40s 50s era like product design. So as soon as I kind of told him the concept of this, he was like, oh man, like yeah, absolutely, let's do this. So, you know, I came up with like, in the script for the game, we actually had like the fake movie poster names and the taglines and everything. So I just gave him those and didn't really give him like I gave him some references. I'd say like, oh, you know, we want to do like a cheesy like 50s sci-fi poster, you know, like It From Beyond, like some of those like crazy movies of the era. And
Yeah.
he like I mean, we went through maybe like 2 revisions on it, honestly. Like he would come back with a sketch and we'd be like, perfect, it's done, you know, just color it and we're good. He knew like exactly what we're going for. And he did like, originally I actually just commissioned him to do the movie posters, but he ended up doing like all the labels for like the soda, the candy bar. I think he even did
Nice.
the at some point you discover some like frames that kind of have like a murder scene like portrayals on them. So he did a lot of that. He did this one image of a ghost that you kind of encounter later in the game. And yeah, even did the key art that we have up here. So his role expanded very quickly as soon as we started getting him working on the game.
Nice.
Just a sidebar, what kind of stuff, since that's his main focus in design, what else does he do? What's his day job that consists of designing 40s-ish stuff?
Yeah,
He's a time
I
traveler.
mean, time traveler, exactly.
He's a time traveler.
Oh, I think he works for like he works as an illustrator for a bunch of like animation studios. So I think he's freelance and
He's the 40s
yeah,
guy.
kind of seems like it. Yeah.
Cool. Wicked.
So now that the game's out and it's out on Steam, Oculus, Viveport, correct?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Like, do you have plans for anything after that, or additions to the base game, or is it kind of like we did it, we love it, time to move on, or do you guys have any plans like that? Or
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I mean, yeah, right now, like we are just kind of getting the word out about the game, and you know, we're trying to, you know, right now we are in App Lab right now, so you know, we've had like whole hour-long conversations and whatnot about this, but you know, it can be kind of difficult from just like a pure like traffic and exposure perspective to like get the word out about the game and all that. But I mean, so far we've been really happy with just like how many people have discovered it and just the reception overall. Like the you know, all the reviews that we've gotten in have been great, and we're just, you know, we're happy to see people really responding to, like you said, the atmosphere, the story. You know, originally I really just like I'm a big fan of like Resident Evil games and like Myst and those kind of like, you know, the more that you explore, the more you kind of discover. So that was kind of how we oriented the narrative in this game. And you know, it's kind of like I wasn't sure if people were really going to respond to that, but you know, people really like just exploring the theater, like spending time in that environment, and just like digging into the mystery of it all. And you know, the game really does reward you. Like if you really search every corner, you know, you can piece together this really large story, and this whole, you know, kind of history of the theater. So yeah, like I mean, we've been really happy with the response, and we definitely plan to, you know, keep like adding to the game, you know, tweaking the game in some ways, and yeah, just like, you know, we have some potential DLC plan that we would love to do. I think there's a lot of ways that we could expand on the story a bit, and I think there's a lot that we had to cut. And actually, in the early kind of stages of developing this game, we had a lot of additional rooms in the theater that we just had to cut due to like budget and scheduling reasons. So some really cool environments that like are just intrinsic to like that kind of like theater. So ideally I'd want to kind of bring some of that stuff in. We can, you know, expand the kind of world that we've built with some additional puzzles. And you know, we've been talking a lot about kind of putting some interesting spins on the type of like escape room gameplay that we've already developed with kind of like different types of puzzle schemes and just really like pushing kind of what you can do, with an escape room in VR. So, I mean, that's kind of where I want to take it.
Yeah, and I know we had like 3 or 4 different endings that we came up with at some point, and
Yeah.
due to time and everything, we weren't really able to get a really like giant ending. Like we had like whole another place you would go to for the ending. We had like different ideas along those lines, and a lot of that had to be kind of simplified due to like just time and stuff. So that's definitely one thing that we would think about, going back and maybe making a whole new ending for it, with the same story, just more stuff going on in that ending place.
Yeah, like one thing that we talked about is like we want to be able to kind of see like some early concepts we had were like being able to see a lot more of like what actually happened and bringing it to more of a climax in that way, and like being able to actually like affect the outcome of the murder. I mean, things start to get pretty like supernatural towards the end. And yeah, we've built this funny world with like all these fictional films too that all kind of fall within like the filmography of this director. So we've even thrown around ideas like being able to like jump into some of that in some way, and like almost like entering the films and starting to like play with time a bit. And I think that just from like a pure writing and puzzle design standpoint, that just kind of like sparks the imagination and opens up like a whole new like possibility of building puzzles around like film, like old film tech and all that stuff.
I was gonna say, can you just sit down and like operate the film camera and you guys can put some old like quickly animated small short films in there? But if you can go into the films and do stuff, that'd be whack.
Yeah.
That'd be wild.
Yeah, no, exactly. That kind of stuff. And the whole idea was like we're going to build a puzzle game around old film technology, and we did a lot of that, trying to like dance around spoilers here, but like with the projector, with some of like, we even went with like an old kinetoscope, which is like this old like flip book style animation device that they used like way back. Yeah, which like not really how a kinetoscope works, but simplified it a little bit to be a bit more user friendly. So yeah, I think like surprisingly, like I was kind of worried. I was like, are we going to run out of kind of things to base this all around? But no, like there's still so much that like we had to cut, and then that I would want to include in future versions of this. And like would really like, originally I even had a puzzle that kind of played with stop motion a little bit and like looking at things through different perspectives to like solve this kind of like stop motion puzzle. So yeah, like all that I would love to bring into something new with the game.
That sounds awesome. I hope you get to it. But yeah, just like going off the characters like film biography or filmography, like you said, you could go to any kind of world you wanted. Just he made this sci-fi movie, so that's that. Like
yeah,
that's pretty
exactly.
crazy.
Those old cheesy dinosaur movies, like the obviously fake dinosaurs and giant clay monster. That'd be crazy. That does get the ideas going. That's awesome.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I mean, yeah, like in the game, you see like he has like a fictional western, he has a sci-fi, like a 50s sci-fi movie. He has this like 40s era ghost movie. So there's like, yeah, there's a ton of stuff to play with. And yeah, as a film lover, I'm just like aching to jump back into it. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, like, like you said, the game is out on Quest, it's out on Steam, it's out on Viveport. We've been super happy with just the amount of people that have been discovering it, and it's kind of been growing just through word of mouth and everything. And we're entering the summer of Steam sales too, which is always exciting. So nice. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that pretty soon we'll be able to have a gauge on like when we can roll out some additional content for this thing, because we love kind of what we built, and we want to just keep growing it kind of beyond the base game.
It's exciting. I always wonder, it seems like it'd be fun to make puzzles and things, but is it as fun as you think it'd be, or do you run out of ideas, and is it like, okay, I need one more puzzle, what can I do? Like, what's that whole conversation in your head like?
Yeah, no, it was tricky. I mean, really where I started was just kind of like a list of, immediately when you think of the concept, there's a few things that just kind of jump to the top of your mind. You're like, okay, like I know I want to do a projector-based puzzle. I want to do something with film strips because that's, definitely puzzle potential there and something we haven't really seen before. And then really it was just research, like going into, old photos and looking at like all these old theaters and just like seeing certain things and being like, oh, like what's that crazy thing? Like, oh, I can definitely build a puzzle around that. I think the trickiest thing, honestly, was just like trying to avoid repetition. And like, I'm thankful these guys were able to check me every once in a while to be like, do you really need like another 4 number combination puzzle? Like we've kind of done that a few times at this point. But yeah, I mean, occasionally I would, there'd be a little bit of a stretch sometimes where it'd be like, okay, like we really need a puzzle to kind of fit within this, this larger scheme of, from like starting the room to like when you design a puzzle, you always think like, okay, you start, the player starts at this point, and at some point, they enter this kind of like bottleneck at this later point, and then you kind of build out this giant flow of everything that happens in between and all the different permutations of what could happen. So that was really important to us, was that it's like, we didn't want it to feel like super linear. We didn't want it to feel like every time someone plays it, they have to solve like every specific puzzle in a row in the same order. We wanted them to be able to explore. We wanted people to be able to solve this puzzle first and then be able to, put this object down because they haven't quite figured it out yet and go explore something else. And just kind of like the fun is in gradually figuring out the connections between everything. So, I mean, that was one of the bigger challenges too. And that just took a lot of trial and error. And we do have some like crazy, whiteboard charts of like that are just totally overwhelming and kind of lay out every puzzle and how it, kind of leads into the next thing.
I did really like how you said like you definitely get the feeling you don't have to figure out anything in like a specific order, kind of more like an area almost. And that just was like really neat because, and I do the same thing in escape rooms. Like I'll kind of gather everything I find and I'll kind of put it in a little pile near where I found it and dig through it and see what I can make sense of. And behind that same counter, I just had a pile of everything. I'm sitting there reading everything a couple times. I'm like, all right, what's next? It was really neat because you could kind of just move around and figure things out. And if you get stuck, I'll go do this and then I'll come back to it. And
yeah,
it's really cool.
Yeah, that is the true like escape room experience. And I feel like it's hard to capture that in VR. So we really challenged ourselves to try and figure that out. And yeah, I mean, honestly though, like I knew that we had a short time frame for this, and just working in creative fields for a while, you just kind of know that like as much that you can do in prep as possible is just going to be like the differentiator between being able to do like a good game and a great game. So, when I first shared a lot of the like outlines for the puzzles and everything, like I would jump into Photoshop, do like mock-ups of kind of exactly how I was thinking they could work, just to show, to like leave less room for error. Because if you go to someone and say like, I want a box with 4 holes and 2 plugs, like that could take any type of form. Like it could be literally anything. So I did do pretty much every puzzle. I did a pretty detailed mock-up of kind of what it could look like before kind of bringing these guys into the fold. And then we just had a lot of very frank conversations early on where you guys were like, there's absolutely no way this is going to work. We shouldn't even waste time on it.
Yeah.
Which I was very thankful for. And then, yeah, you guys came up with a lot of like really cool ways to kind of simplify some of the things that I proposed to.
Yeah, no, there's a surprising amount of things in Atlas that just barely work. Like, you guys have no idea how close it was to scrapping like half the puzzles in the game.
Wow.
There's a lot of technical problems, and like I probably spent a month just on lighting, and like that little switch you pull like pretty early on that turns on the power to like the whole place was so frustrating. Because we use baked lighting for everything, so we don't have like any real-time lighting at all in the game, so it's all baked, and everything that looks like real-time lighting is all like magic, right? So having it where you can turn a light switch on and like the lighting changes when you have no real-time lighting was the most frustrating thing. And you would think that someone's done it and someone has the keys and can tell you how to do it. That person doesn't exist, and if they do, let me know, because I couldn't find anything. And so we had to go deep into development and being like, and it felt like every other build we'd be like, okay, we had this thing and the lighting broke again. We're like, oh crap.
Yeah, we should have, honestly, your credit should have been like lead developer / magician, because there was some crazy stuff given, the Quest 2 hardware that you pulled off.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like it's the fun game development stuff of like, oh, we tweaked, like we added a button to a puzzle in the projection booth up, and now the lighting broke in the lobby. It's like just like insane stuff that we would just have to like play through the game for.
In the regression
I mean,
testing,
I've played through it hundreds of times at this point, just to log every possible bug.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I lost some years off my life just being like, Eric being like, okay, everything's working great. But when I went to the auditorium, everything was black. And I was like, oh, okay, thanks. I guess we can't ship it quite yet. It was crazy.
I guess your title should just be Jesus.
Yeah, I think it should be. Like, honestly, if any like Unity developer looked at what I did to make the decals work on the globe, you would not believe me what I had to do. Like, I can show you, like, because not to get too technical, we couldn't turn like the whole like the little depth section setting in like the URP, and we had to turn that off, which means it broke like anything that uses like depth data. So we had to do a decal with no depth data, and it was painful, but I made it work. It looks good, but behind the scenes, there is some crazy stuff going on that should not be going on.
Yeah, and that was the funny thing too, is it was like, oh, having like this, like curtains draw back on cue and like fold together and do this like complicated animation, no problem, knock that out. Oh, having this like projected image on a globe, no way. Like it took months, and it just like constantly disappears. Like as soon as you're like, I fixed it, load the game, it's gone. And it's just sorry about that.
So it sounds like making a game like this is just as big a puzzle as the game itself.
It was very difficult. And like I had one of my friends that works with us too. He came on, he did the elevator, and he set up a lot of the sound stuff, but pretty much everything else was from a programming standpoint, it was just me. And the lighting. I was like, I told Dan, the owner of a company, I was like, we need a lighting guy on the next game, because I'm not doing that again, because that was too much work. I'm not a lighting guy, I'm a programmer. Let me do some programming. But yeah, sometimes, when you're an indie studio, you get to the point where, everyone has to learn Photoshop. And everyone has to like be good at these things, because we can't have dedicated people for every role. So you get a lot of, people kind of doing a bunch of everything.
Yeah, like even like I'm in no way a developer, but even at some point, like I was jumping into Photoshop to design some of the documents that you find scattered around the theater, and just kind of started taking on like some of that just like art development, just because there was so much stuff to get through and just so many intricate things too, that we're just a handful of people trying to get this game done. So everybody just kind of has to jump in and pitch in wherever they can. And yeah, like another thing too is, and we talk about this a lot, but with a escape room puzzle game, like things just can't break. Like if you lose a key, like you're done. Like a key can't glitch outside the map or something like that, because it just stops you in your tracks. Like if you're playing a shooter game or something on Quest, it's like you lose like a mag or something, it's like, okay, like you just move on. But with this, it's like everything has to be very precise, and there's a lot of weight just put on interactions and stuff. So we had to be very, very cautious about anytime we push an update too, just run through everything again. Like we can't just check that area. It's like, we changed this one thing, all right, let's start from the beginning and let's work through the whole game and make sure nothing's broken, no like random bugs have popped up, because that's all the difference. So a lot of pressure, but definitely pushes you to create like a very polished experience.
Yeah, the third part of any clue like just kind of glitches into the counter or something. Like, player never sees it. It's like that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah, like sometimes when I play like Steam games, through Oculus Link or whatever, and you can't pick stuff up off the floor. That'll like a puzzle game, like you need that thing on the floor and you can't get it. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that's that's another thing with the VR too. And it's like I think it's just become part of kind of like the VR development and publishing cycle too. Is like there's so many permutations of like different kinds of hardware and controls that someone could be using to play your game, that it's so hard to account for all of that. This is getting a bit into like the weeds.
That's all right.
But like you buy a PlayStation game, you play it on a PlayStation, like that's what you got. But you publish a Steam VR game, and people could be playing it through the Index, they could be playing it through the Quest. There's like all these different types of hardware combinations that you could be using. So we just had to be very attentive to that, especially during like the first 24 48 hours of the game's release. Is occasionally it's like, man, like I have this headset from 10 years ago, I've like kind of downloaded this patch to be able to connect these controllers, and it's not handling just right. And you're like, well, we'll kind of do what we can and patch what we can to be able to create the best experience. But ultimately, I think I'm really good. I feel really good about where we ended up, though. Like, I think a lot of people we're able to push it out to as like wide an audience as possible, and pretty much anyone with a VR headset kind of has access to it, which is cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like for that guy with a 10-year-old headset kind of thing. Like, can you mail us your headset and your controllers so we can try it?
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
it's
a virtual boy.
Yeah, that's what blows my mind with VR devs, and that's a lot of half the reason we kind of started the podcast, because it's everything's still new, everything's Wild West. Like you couldn't find help with lighting, like some of those things still don't exist. Where like traditional gaming, there's not saying anyone could do it, but a lot of people can do it. But VR, like it's not only the mechanics and everything's brand new, you are also dealing with all kinds, like more than any other platform, like all the different headsets, technology, sensors, hand tracking, field of view, like all the things that you hear about when people are talking about VR. And it's just like, you guys are like my heroes. That's why I talk to devs so much, because, and you're all like small team. Well, not everyone, but most teams are like small or solo. And it's just, I don't know how you guys do it. Like you said, you have to wear a lot of hats and do everything. It's insane.
Yeah. No, I must say though, like, Eric was the best person to work with. Like he had the document ready. He had screenshots of stuff. He had like everything written out. and he was always like available, just like, I don't know what you mean by this. He'd jump on like an hour call with you and be like, okay, how about we do? And it was great. It was definitely a very smooth experience from my end to just have someone who did everything ready, and I didn't have to like, because like the previous game that I'd worked on, I was basically designing it while programming it, and it's so much easier to have everything laid out there, and you're like, okay, I know what I need to get done. It was nice.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Yeah, I'm steeped in like the low budget creative world of like, the least you can do is just come prepared and kind of know like exactly what you're shooting for, and just have like an idea of like what you want the experience to be. Everything from like, the artwork to like controls and that kind of thing. Because it's so hard to figure it out. Like it truly is like, building the airplane while you're flying it. And yeah, like I know that like a lot of people talk about the control scheme too for the game, which was kind of funny because it was something that you threw in pretty early, and like a lot of people have been really happy with it. And like it's not that common in VR games, but it's just like I just kind of jumped into it, and it was like second nature for a while. Like as soon as you explained to me like how you mapped it, I was like, oh, like this is great. Like why isn't this like in like every VR game that I play? Yeah, I don't know if you want to talk
Nathan
about that
needs a
little
raise.
Yeah.
Wink,
No, I mean,
wink.
we have it, set up, where one hand is like locomotion like this. You can move around, and if you press the stick down, you can even sprint and stuff. So you can completely move just with the left hand if you want to. But also, you can push like up on the right stick for the right hand, and you can teleport. So you're not choosing like locomotion. A lot of games do that. They're like, okay, do you want a locomotion or do you want to teleport?
Yeah.
And we're like, why not both?
It is both.
And it's great to have both at the same time, because both me and Eric, we do the same thing. We teleport long distances and we locomotion for small distances, and it's just gets you the fine movement. And everyone's done it in a VR game, that teleportation. You're like, I need to be slightly closer to that, so I'm going to back up, aim down, try to find like the right spot to teleport so I can move just an inch closer, and we just take all that frustration away.
Yeah. So like a lot of that stuff, like you thought about really early, and just kind of tying back to the, being prepared. So, that just helped us like figure out kind of how we were going to stage things. Space is so important in a VR game. Things can't feel like too big or too small, and it kind of takes you out of it pretty quickly. We didn't have the luxury of being able to just like design everything 3 times. Once we kind of got the feeling of like space and all that. So yeah, I think everybody just came to the game really prepared, ready to just kind of like jump into it. And I think the biggest the biggest hurdle for you was just trying to figure out how to implement that inventory system, like, which kind of was a last minute decision, honestly. But yeah, no, it came together really well. And we do talk a lot about how one of the biggest challenges with the game is, and something that you don't really realize when you're playing it, is that there's like a lot of just behind the scenes hand holding that you just don't realize is really there. Like you just feel like I'm just walking through this theater and picking up and interacting with objects. But we really did try to examine it from every angle, where it's like, if you grab this paper and you go all the way across to the other end of the theater and you like drop it behind the desk, but it has an important clue on it, and you go back and you forget about it, like, what are you going to do? Like, you're just kind of stuck. So, objects are kind of like limited to certain rooms sometimes. And the inventory system is like, if someone loses an object or they don't remember where they put it, and they like load out and back into the game and it appears in their inventory, like puzzle specific objects come back to you if you lose them. So it's like there's a lot of tricks like that it was a lot of trial and error, and just being really just examining it from every angle, that really just help kind of add to the polish of the game and make sure people don't get stuck and frustrated.
I think that's neat. It's kind of like a mini hint almost.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a hint. If you're like, oh, I can put this in my inventory, probably important. And my biggest like warning or like advice I can give to any other like indie devs out here that are making a similar type game is don't do what I did, because we basically made the whole game and then we're like, oh yeah, now let's add the saving and loading. And it turns out if we would have made that system from the beginning, it probably would have been a lot easier to implement, because I had to go back and make sure everything worked with saving and loading. And you can quit out at any time and it'll put you like right back to where you were. All the puzzles that you did were done and all the stuff's like in the same spot. And that was very difficult. Definitely when it's last minute. Yeah.
It seems to be a trend of people that accomplish great things. They're always like, don't do what I did. Make something really good.
Yeah, I am very appreciative of the save system though, because some days you just have so much time and you're like, I want to play that, but I don't want to, I don't have enough time. But if there's a save feature, you feel confident you can pop in and out.
Yeah,
it is barrier to entry if you don't have it.
Yeah, and I'm definitely one of those like players that like, when I'm done with VR, I just like turn off the headset and like, I'm not like going through like save features and like all that kind of stuff. So, we tested it quite a lot where we try and set up really complicated scenarios where like certain puzzles are like half solved, and we're like halfway through this room and I've put some objects like in a different place and then just kind of quit out the game and reload it into it. And yeah, I mean, it holds up so well. It's just a lot of that back end stuff you just don't even think about, but really consumed like the final 2 months of the development stage, really.
No, it was tough, but I'm glad with how it turned out. And one funny little anecdote is I don't know if you guys know this, but in a lot of European countries they use a comma instead of a decimal point for like like 14.25. They would do 14.25. I knew that, but I didn't really think about that when I was coding certain stuff. And like we had a bug for like the first little bit when the game came out, where like European players and only European players, sometimes when they would load back in, they would load it like randomly way up in the sky, like just outside the map on the, and they would send us these videos, and I'm like, that's impossible. Like that it makes no sense. You never go up there, so it should never save your position up there. And I was like, I don't understand how that's happening. So we quickly put like a patch out where it's like, okay, if you're ever outside the map, it's going to teleport you back in the map. So it's like a quick fix while we did it. And then one day I was like taking a shower and I was like, wait a minute. and it just like hit me.
Is 12.
Yeah, and I was like, it made total sense. I did like some mock-ups and I was like, yep, that's exactly what's happening. So I had to make my machine pretend like it's European, and I did some tests and I was like, yep, I'm getting the exact bug that they were getting, and I finally we fixed it fully and stuff. But it's one of those things where people, when they put in bug reports, they tend not to put what country they're from. So we couldn't find the correlation of like, why are there are very few players that are getting this one bug, but they all get the exact same bug, and none of us can reproduce it. So like,
yeah,
it was funny.
Yeah, that was crazy. And for a while, we were like, why are the only bad Steam reviews in German? Like, what's going on?
Yeah,
which should have been a clue in, I guess, but
yeah, kind of a stretch to just put that 2 and 2 together for.
Yeah, I love that story because I picture you like sprinting out of the shower and just like running to the computer, just being like, I got it.
Yeah, no, it was pretty much like that. I mean, it was such like a Jimmy Neutron blame brass of being like, it just all came to me at once. Be like, wait a minute, like it felt like such a series of steps. It's like Europeans use that, and since I'm separating them by commas, then maybe it would. I was like, that totally makes sense. It's just so crazy it might work.
Yeah. As far as
for your delimiter.
Yeah, I use the comma as my delimiter. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's a bad idea. Don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like launches go, though, it was a pretty smooth process. Like there were a few things like that popped up, but yeah, we've like rolled out a bunch of patches since then just to like improve gameplay and like add some features that yeah, like a lot of like streamers and content creators wanted the option to like be able to turn off music and like adjust like sound effect volume and all that kind of stuff. So we rolled out a lot of that stuff. We also added some achievements too on Quest and Steam and Viveport, I think. So like that was kind of a big thing. That was like the first thing we knew we wanted to do. Like after release, we were like, we want to immediately just get some achievements, and we didn't know exactly how long the time frame would be to add that and everything. But yeah, we turned those around pretty quickly. And that just kind of adds to, like, for achievement hunters and everything, that just kind of adds to the fun of being able to like take on certain challenges. And it kind of like there's no time pressure like in the theater or in the game, but we did want to add if people want to like try and do more of like a traditional escape room experience, like we do have achievements that do kind of on the back end measure the time that you spend like trying to solve certain puzzles, and if you solve them really quickly you get certain achievements. So I think that kind of introduced some of the fun like escape room ish elements into the game.
I would fail at doing one of those achievements. I'd be like, hang on, Mr. Ghost, I'm looking at this comic book.
Right.
Yeah, it's good to accommodate all of the different types of players, but I really like that there were no time limits, because like I said, I'll go sit in a corner and just stare at the whatever objects are there for like minutes and just sit there and just kind of take it all in. But there's definitely that tribe of people that like to speed run and like do all that fun stuff. But
turn the lights on and off and try to break your lighting.
You can try.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah. It's bulletproof by now, I'm sure.
You can just flick that switch all day, and you can quit out, flick the switch, do all. It'll stay. 90% sure.
Nice.
Yeah. See, I just have PTSD from handling the switch in like the early stages, so I just flick it on, and I'm like, all right, backing away. No more switch.
Oh yeah. It is like a bad, like, it's one of those things I feel like a lot of game developers do, and it's hard to not do it, where you're like, you don't, when you're testing, you don't want to break it because you're just like, please just work. But then you got to break it because you got to find the problems, so it's a challenge. But I mean, and one thing, a shout out, is the music that we had done, all custom music for the game. Just, I think, elevated it to like way more immersive than it was before. Like,
yes.
Both me and Eric had both run through it many times without music, without sound effects at all. Like, really, the sound effects didn't even go in until like the last month. So we were just playing in silence, and we're like, yeah, this is pretty cool. And then once the music got in and all the sound effects where you could bang stuff around and make a bunch of noise, we were like, all right, this is pretty awesome, actually.
If you feel like you're being watched and observed, though, are you afraid of making those noises?
Yeah,
exactly.
You should be.
Thanks, sorry.
We might do a surprise DLC where we actually add something that watches you and just not tell anybody. So careful.
Ooh. I like
Speaking of the music,
creepy territory.
Yeah.
For anyone listening, watching, the soundtrack is available on Steam too, maybe other places, but I saw it on Steam. So I highly recommend it. The music's great.
Yeah. So we partnered with Evan Goldman is the composer's name. And he primarily does like film scores. So he approached this kind of like he would scoring a movie. Like I did like a very detailed breakout for him of just like tonally what we were going for in each room and kind of at what stage in the story you were at that point. And then I just recorded myself like in the quest playing through the game and kind of breaking it up into different sections and sending it to him. And he would, have it on his, like the playback of that gameplay, like on his monitor while he was scoring. And, we talked a lot about like influences of like the Twilight Zone and all that kind of stuff thrown in, and just like
some BioShock,
Bernard Herrmann, and BioShock, and throwing like a lot of that stuff kind of into a blender to try and create something, new. And like every time I load into the game, I'm just like, when that Atlas theme song like kicks in and you're like standing at the base of the theater, it's just like you get chills because it just adds so much to the experience. And it's this like, when I remember talking to him once at like he called me at like midnight or something, just like he loves to just like immerse himself in this stuff. And we were talking through like the main theme, and he was like, I want it to feel like you're about to go on like an adventure. There's this kind of like sinister air to it, but at the same time, there's kind of this like, we're kicking off this kind of like exploratory, type of game. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. Like, if you can do that, then that's amazing. And yeah, like he like absolutely pulled it off. Like, you listen to that track and you're like, yeah, like I feel all those things. And yeah, he also designed the music to just get progressively creepier, like, and just introduce like a lot more like low frequency stuff, and just kind of put you on a bit more edge as you get further into the game. Which, again, another kind of subtle trick, kind of carrying over from the film world, which is just, a lot of just like kind of low frequency stuff that you don't even necessarily notice kicks in as you get to some of the more intense parts of the game. It just kind of like, like subconsciously puts you on edge. And most importantly, he wrote that like little lobby shop tune that you get when you enter the concession stand.
Awesome.
Which he like, as soon as I described that to him, he was like, I'm gonna have fun with this one. Like, this is just gonna be a blast. So yeah, like the music definitely, like, I mean, it was like night and day once we added that into the build and was able to actually like play through it with the music added. It was huge addition to it.
Yeah, that's pretty great. Well, we hit our hour. Is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about that we didn't get to yet? We don't mind going, but we never want to hold anyone hostage.
Oh yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I mean, really, like, you asked about like other things that are coming up too, and one thing that's really exciting to us is like, in addition to just growing Atlas and expanding on the game and improving it and all that kind of stuff, is Dan and I did recently, like, we're part of a group that launched this horror film studio. So we are kind of actively in production on some horror films, and we do have this plan to kind of do some collaborations with Top Right Corner, and essentially like expand the worlds of the movies that we're creating in like
Nice.
AR and VR. So we want to do like full-on games and full-on experiences that aren't just like kind of typical like promotional things, but are actually like build on the stories and the characters and like everything that we've developed in the films. So we just kind of see that as like the future of just entertainment in general. Is we have all these incredible tools in VR, and being able to have the means to like capture scans on set and then bring some of those objects into virtual reality is really interesting to us. And that's kind of what we did with Belko, because Dan was a producer on the film The Belko Experiment, so on set he was able to get scans of all the rooms and environments that they were in, and a lot of that was then used as the basis for some of the 3D modeling and everything done for the game.
Nice.
So that technology has only gotten easier and has only improved. So yeah, we're excited to like kick off a lot of collaborations in that way, and be able to build all these new very detailed and immersive worlds in VR for people to experience.
That sounds exciting. That's really neat.
Yeah.
I have to be honest, horror in VR is the only thing that really like gives me issues sometimes, but I try to pace myself. But if it's cool enough, I'll make it happen.
Nice. Yeah, I know. I can only play like 30 minutes of like Five Nights at Freddy's or something before I'm like, I just gotta take a break. My heart rate is too high.
I've gotten about 5 feet in the ventilation system, and that's about it.
Yeah, no, I'm very lucky that it just happens to be the company I'm working at. My favorite genre of movies has always been horror, so just it feels very lucky that it's like, oh, the company I works with just happens to also like be doing all this horror stuff that I'm going to be able to work with, and I'm like, hell yeah, dude, let's do it.
It's awesome.
I definitely think, with a lot of that stuff, we're going to try to really experiment with what you can do in VR. Like we don't. I think both me and Eric don't want to just do like normal stuff. Just like, oh, here's stuff you could do on a desktop, but we're going to bring it to VR for no reason. It's like we're going to try to do some stuff that's really out there and really like unique to VR. And I think that's going to be fun for anyone, even if you don't like the VR aspect or the horror aspect of it. Just being able to enjoy the uniqueness of some of the stuff we're going to come up with in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought it'd be really neat to, like, big screen is awesome. Like, just with the headset on, like, watch a short film or a show, like an episode or something, and then hop into like an experience, like just like a super seamless transition, and then just kind of explore it. And so,
Yeah.
I'm pumped to see what you guys come up with.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, we know that the tech is only going to get better. The hardware is only going to get better over the next 2 to 3 years. So we can only imagine, by the time we're releasing some of these films and, where that's going to be and what we'll be able to do. So yeah, we're super stoked for it.
After you get like a few movies and games that are linked out, you could have like a little movie theater VR experience where you watch the little films introducing it and you'd be like, I want to go to that one, and it just launches the game.
Oh yeah, that'd be so cool.
You don't have to leave the little movie theater. Just like boom.
Yeah, I think about that all the time. Like I love watching stuff in VR. So there's so much crossover between the technologies. And yeah, they've always kind of been, at least in my life, very separate. There was like the film stuff I was doing, and there was the game and VR stuff I was doing. So bringing that together is just like, yeah, super exciting for me.
We watched like just being in VR makes felt like we haven't watched a movie with in a while, but every weekend we'd watch a random thing in big screen, and we ended what was it called, like Raptor Jesus or Raptor Pastor?
VelociPastor.
Yeah.
VelociPastor, yeah. Like those are one of those movies like we could probably watch that. But then it's like I don't know that I would have watched it unless it was like a group activity, and then VR meant that group activity actually happened. So I don't know that I would have watched VelociPastor without big screen being a thing. So
VelociPastor is one of those movies that you need a group of people to fully enjoy it.
Cinch up your waist, your belt, and be like, okay, let's get this done. It was a ride.
But
how many more minutes?
Wookie and I are brothers, and I live in Wisconsin, and he's lived in the Carolinas for the last 20 years now.
15, 17 years.
VR really helps make it, hanging out like more realistic and accessible, and just watching movies like that. Just nothing else is just so awesome. So like, yeah, you really feel like you're sitting in a living room watching a stupid movie and making fun of it. It's so cool.
Yeah. Totally. Like my sister, like I live in LA, my sister lives in Chicago, and my brother lives in Santa Ana, which isn't too far from where I live, but still like an hour out. So
traffic.
Yeah. And traffic in LA, that's like, 10 hours. So being able to put on the VR headset and like play mini golf together is amazing. To like, jump into something like VR chat and just hang out that way. Like I think we're only at like the beginning of what everything that's going to be possible. And yeah, I know that's like the number one question that I get with Atlas is like, is it going to be multiplayer? And it's like it's so tricky to do that at this level. Like we'd love to, and like I love the idea of multiplayer escape rooms. And I mean, if this really finds its audience and people, like really dig it, then like sky's the limit. We can definitely like look at all types of expansions. But yeah, I mean, if we could do that at some point, I'm totally game for it.
I was gonna say like that would be fun, but maybe that isn't always necessary. But then I remember like the one escape room we did as a group with friends. One of our friends is like the best laugh. His laugh and his shout laugh is like would make that game 10 times more enjoyable, because there was things like You just stick your hand in like a pipe inside a wall to get like a clue or something, and then there's little air jets that go off, and he sticks his hand in there and he's screaming and pulls his hand out. Doesn't have the clue, so he's got to go do it again. He's like, I thought that you guys might want to experience that for yourselves, because he was too scared to put his hand back in the hole. And I was like, oh man, that would make it. I don't care what the escape room was. I would just sit back and watch him. So yeah, that would that would make it happen.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
really, all escape rooms, which we've heard some people do this, all escape rooms are really multiplayer in a way where you could always just you call up your friend, do it at the same time, kind of help each other out with puzzles. Because Atlas, all of our puzzles are they're going to be the same every time, which we've kind of intentionally done it that way. So you technically could play co-op in 2 different sessions, kind of talking to each other, which I've done in games. But it would be nice to have, and hopefully for future stuff, maybe we can explore multiplayer stuff, because and VR is just such a social platform. Everyone has a mic built into it. Everyone. You kind of feel more connected to the people around you in VR. So it would be cool to have some more multiplayer experiences. But it off, if someone told me to make multiplayer Atlas in 6 months, I would have just been like, all right, no, I quit. I'm gonna go find another job.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry. Dan crossed that out before he gave you my document. So
okay, good.
There was no mutiny.
And VR, the power of VR is so crazy that we've been sitting here for an hour, and the first thing anyone ever says when they come in here, oh, I've got pill hands, which you guys both did, which is fine. We understand it. But after about 20 minutes, you still feel like you're talking to someone.
Gestures,
it's insane. Like,
yeah,
I've been gesturing the whole time.
Basic little pills, you're still very descriptive and emotive, and yeah, it's only going to get better and better for everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, really quick on that multiplayer point. Yeah, actually, I was actually really surprised by this, because I didn't really think about it like as we were designing the game, but a lot of people, like a lot more than I expected, told me that they play the game by like casting it to their TV or their computer and like solving the puzzles with other people, like either with a group or with a partner or something like that. And I think that's so cool, because it's like, it's it really does start to feel like a real escape room in that way. And there was like even one like YouTuber who was playing it and said that like her daughter came in and it was like bedtime or something, and then got hooked on the game and was like helping her solve all the puzzles that she was like struggling with, just by like looking at the PC version being cast onto the monitor. So hearing stuff like that is like, oh, that's so cool, because like, there is like built-in kind of multiplayer in a way that allows you to be able to solve these puzzles with other people.
I didn't think of that. That's pretty cool. Because figuring things out as groups is like a real memorable thing. My girlfriend still tells me a story when they're playing like the OG Myst way back in the day, and they're kids and they couldn't figure something out, and their dad was like, you do this, and they couldn't figure it out, and their mom hadn't done any of it. And she sat down and like, you can click and pull like a chain, but they didn't think you could click and hold it or something like that. Her mom clicked and held it and like solved that part of the puzzle, and stuff started happening. And they were like, oh my God. And they like threw her out of the chair and then sat down and like took over, like, get out of here, thanks. And like she says that story all the time, and it's like such a huge memory for like their family.
Right.
And it was just like,
it's amazing.
They solved a puzzle in a goofy way, and it's like they still talk about it. So
yeah. I actually have a question for you. Without spoilers, I'm curious about like what your favorite puzzle is, and then also what the hardest puzzle for you was.
I was hoping you weren't going to ask me that, because I want to be honest. I haven't got past. So the
candy bars. He hasn't got past the candy bars.
The candy bars. It's got to be the candy bars.
Maybe because I'm sitting there behind that counter, and I honestly feel bad that I haven't played more. There's just so many things, because I really love it. Like, it's like the game for me, because I love escape rooms, but like I mentioned, I hate locks and keys. I still go do them, but it's like I wish it was better. This is much better. So I've made the combo. Like, I know I have it right, but there's something with those candy bars that aren't working for me. I'm like, I have taken out every possible one and done everything you can imagine with it. I'm like, and I don't want to look it up, so I pop in there every so often. Like, what's going on here? Like, so I figure it out.
Yeah, we've
So-
gotten
yeah,
the
no,
biggest.
that's
Yeah, the amount of people that talk about the candy bar puzzle, they're always like, that one. They either love it because they're like, that one knew I was in for something that was going to challenge me, and other people are like, that was way too difficult for this early on.
yeah. I think in like the early stages of testing the game, like, yeah, we did like an alpha test and sent it out to a bunch of people who like had no idea what the game was, and I think like I remember reading 2 like reports back because we have them like answer a bunch of questions, and the first one was like least favorite puzzle, candy bars. Next one was favorite puzzle, candy bars. But I was just like, well, that doesn't help.
You guys just saying it's the candy makes me feel so much better, and I know I'll get it because that picture's there, and I'm like, all right, I got this lined up. Like, I don't know, I'll figure it out though.
I believe
Okay.
in you. You can do it.
But it's
yeah,
like-
yeah, we've
Like I said, I hopped in, I streamed it. You guys shared it, I streamed. I just hopped right in and did it. So I'm like, I could look really dumb or I could look really smart. Here it goes. And up to that point, I'm like, I feel pretty good. I'm pretty smart. So I was streaming that for like 20 minutes. I'm like, I'm going to save everyone's time and just stop the stream and go figure this out.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we added like so much stuff post launch to try to make the candy bar puzzle a little bit easier, adding some hints here or there. Like that sign
might
that
be-
tells you, like all 6 flavors was not there originally.
Yeah. I might message you later, but I'm gonna get it.
Yeah.
Hey,
Because
yeah.
I feel bad because I'm like, I love the game so much. I've only been in there for like an hour, and there's probably, I don't know how much more time in the game, but that's like the second room maybe if you consider the hallway a room. But
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's really like up until that point, you're kind of like handheld a little bit in terms of like, the linear nature of the puzzles and everything. And we tried to make it like a bit of an acclimation period where it's like, okay, like these puzzles are like there's some like familiarity to them, but they're still tricky and they still require a lot of searching around and experimentation, figuring them out. Yeah, that's the first one where it's like, all right, welcome to the big leagues. You gotta really try like an experiment here, and just really kind of like pushing some of the difficulty a little bit. But yeah, I think once people get through that, I think it kind of like this like logical kind of, I don't know, like it really snaps like in your mind. There's kind of this like logical thing, and then they don't really have any difficulty with like the rest of the game.
Mhm.
I was
Like
going to
there's
say
definitely
that because
challenges.
we just went to a Renaissance fair this past weekend, and this guy was, doing riddles and things, and he kind of grabbed us. I'm like, I don't want to do this. The first one, like, I felt so dumb, and then after that one, like, I didn't say them out loud because I wasn't trying to spoil the fun for anyone else, but I instantly was getting them, and I'm like, oh, I feel good now. But it's the same kind of thing. Once your brain clicks to the right gear, you're like, oh,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah. So we always like we go back and forth on that puzzle a lot, and like it really is just kind of like the it kind of like breaks you in a little bit for the remainder of the game, and it's kind of like the litmus test of sorts, where it's like once you make it through that challenge, then you're ready to
like,
tackle the Atlas Theater.
we just got to get them to this point, and then they can't get a refund. No, I'm just look at this. Like I was hoping like you guys saw my stream because you're like, look at this, Eddie. He's been sitting there for 20 minutes on this.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like when the game first came out, like we watched some streams. And it was painful to my soul. Like some people that would just get stuck on stuff. I'm like, it's right there. I made it so obvious for you. Please.
Yeah.
This was 8 times harder when it first came out.
Yeah, I mean, I even watch like some people play like I Expect You to Die or The Room or whatever, and like you can't help but like yell at the screen. You're like, it's right there. Like there's a screwdriver right there. And yeah, I was like, I wonder if I'll feel that with our game. I was like, yep, I definitely do.
Probably worse.
It's even worse.
I was gonna say,
it's
like,
good.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay, I'll go ahead. So I was gonna, like, if you haven't, gotten past that, you have so much cool stuff to like. You haven't seen nothing yet. Like, there's so much cool twists and turns that happen, and cool effects that we've done that were a miracle to pull off. That
Yeah,
that's
you
my
haven't even seen
driving
my-
force. Like I have to get through this.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
you haven't
that's
even
like,
seen my favorite room yet, which like is a little bit later in the game. But yeah, it's like the environment is just so cool. Like it's so drenched in atmosphere.
Awesome.
and I think that's one main thing that we did very intentionally, is that like how the the beauty of the rooms is the reward, right? So like you get to the next room and you're like, all that was worth it, because now there's like a beautiful one, like you got a new soundtrack. Every room has its own soundtrack, so it's like even when you get from the shop to the lobby itself, new soundtrack. So you get like some new music to listen to that's like amazing. You get a whole new environment to look at. And then so that's kind of like your reward for getting to the next area. So like each area you go to is like this beautiful new place and some fun stuff. And yeah, no, I think that's like kind of the driving motivator to to get through it.
Yeah, for sure.
Crazy.
And like I remember with the shop, how it's all like dark everywhere before you turn on the lights and stuff. It's when I first made that, I kind of made it, I made it dark, but you could still see everything in the lobby. And Eric was like, "No, I want it to be pitch black. I want it to be where you can't really see anything out there, so that when you turn on the lights, it's like all this was there this whole time."
Yeah. Yeah, again, like I always kind of like that in games, and like I'm trying to think of some examples, but
Uh-oh. So his hands disappear.
oh,
It's back.
I'm back. Sweet. So yeah, I'm trying to think of some examples, but yeah, there's like there's some games where it's like you see that area that you're going to experience later, but you can't quite get there yet. And it's just kind of like a subtle tease as to like, oh, once you get through this, like, it's like partially obscured. Like I love that kind of stuff. So this was such a good opportunity where you're like trapped behind that concession stand booth, but you can kind of see some like things out in the lobby. And yeah, and I know that like lighting is your favorite thing to deal with, so I just wanted to make it as complicated as possible.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, like, and it was, I mean, I did hate you a little bit, Eric, when it was like, I had it perfectly working, where it was like, like the shop and everything was lit, and like, everything like originally was lit, and just the lobby was black. And then, you turn the lights on, the lobby turns on. I was like, okay, cool. I got these two states. I can switch between them. It all works. And he's like, okay, I want a third one where like the shop's not lit yet and you're just in the hallway. And then like you have to turn on the shop. And I was like, what did I do to you? Like what?
What past life did I harm you in?
Yeah, like,
Great. I'm glad this is all coming out now. Just to air all the frustrations.
Yeah, we
Because
like
like honestly,
space.
Yeah.
yeah.
Just cut.
Like the two lighting things was not too hard. The third one was brutally painful.
Yeah.
It was all.
But I mean, honestly, like you don't really see that in a VR game of this scale. So that was really fun. I mean, because it is pretty crazy how it's like there is just this like sequence of like you're in the same room, but you are activating like different steps of power to get the theater turned on. And that's just it's like such a unique like gameplay style. I think people really respond to it.
Discovering what's already there is cool.
Yeah. And it is one of those things where you like I play like Expect You to Die 2, this new game gets that sells all the stuff, and I look at it and I'm like, how come we put so much time in our lighting? You guys don't even have shadows. I see your game. There's no shadows anywhere. Why did we put so much time into our shadows?
That's one of the things that makes me almost not able to play some games. And that like it almost looks like an old like Sega racing game in the arcade where like there's no shadows. Nothing looks like it's settled or belongs anywhere. It's just all too bright, and it's like I can't even look at this. I get you.
Yeah. No, we put a lot of time in making sure everything looks real, and that like lighting comes from a place. There's no like magic lights. There's always like a light fixture that you can see that turns on and off and stuff that you can kind of see. It's like, oh yeah, that's where the light's coming. It comes out as a cone, we put more attention to detail into lighting than probably we should have. but it It all
It's
looks
really
nice.
it's hard. I mean, like when you look at a game and you say like, oh, it looks really good. It's like, well, what does that mean? And it's like it's a combination of like hundreds of different things that just require a lot of work and attention.
And lighting is like a life course of its own. Like you can be a lighting master and nothing else and still never be short of learning.
Yeah.
I think it just all adds to the atmosphere, which, like I said, at the start, you guys nailed it. So I wouldn't sell yourself short on that one, or hate the fact that you did it.
Yeah,
It all came together.
We like it. I mean, which in the trailer, the globe puzzle. I know Eric loved the original globe puzzle so much before we changed it. Because
oh man, yeah,
it like we had like what we thought was a very simple idea for it, and without spoiling anything of how it used to be. It used to be a 2x2 Rubik's cube basically, and we're like, oh, surely you can figure out a 2x2 Rubik's cube like people do 3x3 Rubik's cubes all the time. But it turns out if there's no colors and it's like countries and stuff, America like flipped upside down and like where you can only see like half of it, you're like, I'm not exactly sure what that is. And this is really, really difficult. And like our game would be like 2 hours longer if we had the old one on, like the old globe puzzle, because that thing was impossible.
Yeah, that took a long time. Right. Yeah. I forgot about how much time that took up, honestly, just trying to figure out what to do with that puzzle. Because it was like it seemed so simple, like on paper. It was like, oh yeah, like that shouldn't be too difficult. Like, and then you jump into VR and you're like, oh man, like just spend 30 minutes trying to get these like damn countries to line up.
That could be your tagline if you add that back in with DLC. Like, if you thought the candy bars were hard, wait till you see this.
Yeah, we should add a DLC that was like the original version of every puzzle, and everyone would be like, "This is an impossible game." Because we color coded a bunch of stuff that wasn't color coded originally, and like certain puzzles were just we again, they look so simple when you're just like making them, but then when you actually try it and you're like, he asked me, he's like, "Oh, did you test it? Did it work?" I'm like, well, I don't know if it worked because I can't freaking like do it.
I can't solve it.
I can't solve it, so I'm not sure if like what happens when when you finish it actually is happening. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, honestly though, like I almost feel like some of it was just like VR unique like challenges too. Just like this is just like, if this was a 2D game, like this wouldn't be as hard. But the fact that like you're in VR and you have to like walk around the object and just see like all these different things, like it's totally different design needs for puzzles. And like the globe was like, it was one of those things where it's like, oh, it feels like really cool because it is like this physical VR. It's this like thing that's like, it's a physical presence that you need to like walk around and inspect from different angles to really figure out how to solve it. And those are the types of things you look for in a VR puzzle game. But yeah, it just by the time you're walking around it for like the 30th time, you're like, okay, let's rethink this, or this is getting too crazy.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna have to head out here pretty soon, but no, it's been great. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Like, I enjoyed talking to you guys. You guys seem awesome.
Hey,
yeah,
the game is great. I will make it past the candy bars, I promise you.
Yeah, we need you to finish it. We need you to finish it.
I need to go download it and see if I can get done with the candy bars before PJ does.
Yeah,
you could probably beat him to it. Yeah,
challenge is on.
There you go. Yeah, race each other to the end. I like it.
But yeah, I love like where you guys are coming from and what you're doing, and I really hope that you make more and have the chance to make more if that's what you want to do. Because even with like the movies and the tie-ins you guys are talking about, that just sounds so awesome. So I really hope to see it.
Yeah, no, you'll see something one way or another for sure.
Oh yeah, it's happening soon.
Awesome.
Cool. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks again.
Thank you.
If you ever need to come back and talk about some more stuff, we're always here. So
Yeah,
Awesome.
whenever.
We'll
I'd
see
love
you
to.
in another 6 months.
That's right. The next one.
So,
All right.
All right.
thanks,
See you
guys.
guys.
See you
Yeah.
guys.
All right. Bye.
Freeze.
It's like that 80s closer where everyone jumps and just freezes.
Yeah. Yay, Toyota.
But for anyone watching this, and I highly recommend this game. I haven't gotten too far into it, but that's just because I'm silly. But it is like visually, audioly, like it's very unique. It's very nice. It's like you want to be in there, even though it's a little creepy. Doesn't matter. It's still that cool to me anyway.
Yeah.
So I highly
I love the
recommend
whole
it.
time frame. I think it's underutilized in entertainment as a whole. It's just like such a romantic time frame in U.S.
Yeah.
history. Like even like I'll be watching Star Trek: The Next Generation, and sometimes when Captain Picard goes into the holodeck, he becomes Dixon Hill, the private investigator, and there's goofy stuff going on. But I'm kind of like, I want to see just more of that. I would like a whole 2-hour episode of him just solving a
Yeah.
private dick crime kind of a thing. Because you look out the window and you see those cars trundling by, and I'm like, go follow that thing, Keep going.
Yeah. And like he was saying with the theater, like it's kind of some of it's, based off, air quotes reality, but stories, real stories, like that just makes it even that much more epic. Like it does really feel like it's a place, which if you've never played VR, it sounds silly, but I promise you, if you got in there, you'd get it.
Yeah, just being in a simple environment like this, with like the gorgeous like 2D textures, and we've messed up the booth a little bit and just made some chairs around the table. But it feels so cool just being in this. And
Yeah.
imagine, being in something that's lit properly. Sorry, Cyril, I'll get to it. Because I'm not doing this booth as much justice as it should be done, obviously. But like, putting it in a place that's just lit differently can make all that difference. And it sounds like they've taken that really seriously. And lighting's a pain in the ass, especially with lower hardware, because shadows are the worst things. Like, go play, I don't know, whatever it is, Skyrim or Witcher 3 or anything, and on the PC, and turn those shadows on high, and your PC is going to fall over. This does happen. So all the work in baking those lightings, it's just a phenomenal effort. And it sounds like if you nail it where it's that atmospheric and none of it's like dynamic lighting, that's a challenge. It's a huge challenge. And like all the physics, like I haven't seen it, but when you guys are talking about the popcorn, it would have been really easy to set up infinite kernels, because you just make like one, maybe 3 kernels that are looking different, and turn on physics and dump them all in there. Anyone can do that in like 5 minutes. Whether the hardware can handle it is a different story, but whatever they did to make that simulate it to be just good enough to look real in the confines of slower, older hardware, like mobile stuff, like these headsets, that's a huge pain in the ass too. So like, you'd think lighting is fine. You just have a spotlight. You put a gun on the front of your light when you're running on a first-person shooter and shine all that stuff. Well, I'm sure there's plenty of times in people's development cycles where they shine the light at like a busy closet or another thing, and it just goes like, oh, no frame rate. Like,
Yeah.
And that shit's tough. But you wouldn't think it's tough because it's like, you just put a fucking spotlight here. Well, that spotlight has to do a huge fucking ton of math, and you turn on refraction, and with like the ray tracing nowadays and shit that everyone thinks they need. And some games probably look great for it, but now it's like that mobile game from 2010 doesn't have ray tracing on it. I can't play that shit. It's like, you won't even know it's there. So I applaud people that squeeze the most out of the old hardware. It's always the most creative stuff, because I don't need high poly. I don't need high textures even, but like, you're really using the hardware to its best ability. Again, coming up with a control scheme that just works and it's a little bit smoother than most things. It's a plus, because that'll get in the way quicker than bad shadow. So remember, we tried Payday 2 in VR, and I still haven't gone back to try it because like the controls weren't working, and then there was supposed to be a mod, and the mod, like, to fix it, the mod wasn't working, and the mod creator was like, oh, I don't know what you're running into. I'm like, I install the game fresh, I follow the instructions, and it just stands there, and I can't walk at all. Like, what is this? So,
yeah, because I had the same problem, but then one day magically it just started working. I'm like, what the? So I
Yeah.
haven't uninstalled it or touched it since because I don't want it to
Yeah.
break.
I can
But I don't
imagine
play it
that.
because I'm like, "Ugh."
Yeah, then mine doesn't work. Like I think I tried to do the teleport once. I got it working for about 5 minutes, and I was like doing the tutorial where you zip a body in a bag, and then I couldn't get in or out. Like I was on some stone or cement steps, and there's like a dumpster or something there. You throw the body bag in or something. I can't get in the door. That's as far as I ever got. I'm like, what? Like, damn it! I know they're updating a non-VR game in VR.
Yeah.
The finer polish takes a lot of time.
All
But
right.
yeah, rant over. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging in there. Long episode, but I think it was all worth it. I enjoyed it. Those guys are great to hang out with.
Yeah, fun.
But yeah, grab their game, give them some feedback, some reviews. Honest. It's always the best. Hopefully we'll see some extra content and movies and tie-ins and all that stuff where they talked about. That'd be so cool.
If you have a negative review, please, auto translate it to German if you're not German, and then just dump it in there and confuse them. Does that sound like it's been through for a loop? Don't do that. I might. Just kidding.
Yeah. Thanks again, everyone, for hanging out, listening, and watching. Catch us next time. We'll be back.
Stay safe.